Until I started studying and realized that more than likely the reason why this shepherd is holding the sheep around its neck is because the shepherd has broken its leg on purpose. I know, horrifying, right? But they're cute little sheep. Why would the shepherd break the leg of the cute little sheep? What a mean shepherd. What an awful, awful mean shepherd. And a lot of people feel that way about God until they realize why he does it. Because a broken leg is better than a broken neck. Because what they would do is they would bring that sheep, and the broken leg would force that sheep to stay next to the shepherd and learn to hear the shepherd's voice, as Jesus says in John chapter 10. We will know the shepherd's voice and we will respond to him. And the sheep wouldn't be able to run away like it had over and over and over again. It would have to stay next to the shepherd because it was dependent upon the shepherd now for its strength until, as it bound up the wounds, it was healed. And by the time that leg was healed, I'm telling you, there was no sheep that was going to stick closer to its shepherd than the one who had gone through brokenness and now was experiencing breakthrough. You can see where I'm going with this. This is why our God allows brokenness in our lives, so that we need him to draw us near, not to push us away. I think this was what the prophet Hosea was getting at in Hosea chapter 6, 1 through 2, when it says, "Come, let us return to the Lord, all of us wayward sheep." Well, let us return. He has torn us to pieces, but he will heal us. He has injured us, but he will bind up our wounds. After 2 days, he will revive us, and on the third day, obviously speaking prophetically about the resurrection, he will restore us, that we may live in his presence, be as close to him as possible while on this earth. Think about it. Just think. Think about those times when you have gone through horrendous brokenness. And those are very often the times when we are closer to God than any other time in our life. I told you about that time I was an ostrich rancher. That was one of the hardest times in my life. I'd gone to help my parents with their first pastorate in Santa Ynez Valley, and I was taking care of ostriches to help pay the bills. And I'd left this big church and this big youth group where I was a leader, and I felt so alone. I felt so alone. And yet it was in that time of brokenness that God began to reaffirm his call into ministry. And it was after that year of ostrich ranching that I went to Bible college. Met this beautiful woman right here. And the rest is, as they say, history. But I would have missed that if I would have stayed where I was at. I would oftentimes rail at God and go, what did I do wrong? Why am I here scraping ostrich poop with the dumbest creatures you've ever made it? I don't understand this. And of course, looking in retrospect, I completely understand what God was doing. He was working something out in my heart that wouldn't have happened in any other context but brokenness. So if you're in that place right now, you're even blaming God for it, I want you to understand that it's out of that brokenness that's going to come an intimacy with your shepherd like you've never known if you will draw near instead of pulling away. He will heal you. Every parent understands this. Let's put it in a different context. We're not shepherds here. But many of us have been parents or are parents. I remember when the twins were born, I think this was year 2, and they were understanding the concept of the Easter egg hunt. And we lived right next to a cliff. And so the twins were so fast, Justice and Jackson were so fast, and they had this great talent of both, I don't know if they talked about it in their little twin language, go! And they would just go in opposite directions, and we'd be running after them, and both Cindy and I were like, in order for us to focus on our boys so that they can have their Easter egg hunt, I think we have a picture of it here. There's Aiden, and there's Ben, and there's Elijah, and they're doing their Easter egg hunt. Right next to that fence is a cliff. We're like, well, we're going to have to leave, sadly, we're going to have to leave the twins inside. Oh, right? How sad is that? Look at Look at this next one here. Look at that. I'm so let me home. I want an Easter egg. And most parents, if you're not a parent, you would say, how cruel. Why don't you let those children have their day? Because we want them to live. Our job isn't to make them happy. Our job is to make sure they don't die. Right? And when you have twins, that's the level at which you're parenting much of the time, right? Can we get an amen? Yes. Anyone that's raised multiples, you know what I'm talking about. And yet that seems cruel, right? But it was for their benefit. I remember before we had twins, we would look at parents that would use leashes. And we would judge them. What awful, if it's only because of their bad parenting. That their children aren't listening. That's clearly what's wrong with them. They should never want it. Are they dogs? There was a cliff behind us. The more I think about it, it was a very dangerous place to live. But there was a cliff behind our house, and in front of our house was a street with a hill where cars would just come racing down, delivery trucks and all that stuff. And the twins would figure out how to sneak out of the house, like Jimmy opened the lock and all of that kind of stuff. The stuff that they would do together was just ingenious and incredibly dangerous. And so a lot of times we would find that the front door was open and they were just running in opposite directions into the street where people would come flying down. And we realized that the only way to keep them alive from getting plowed over by a UPS truck was to put them on a leash. Let them gather flowers. Let them not die. And you understand, see, from a parenting perspective, you're like, oh, okay, but if you were driving, I can't even tell you the looks that we got from the people who knew so much better as they're driving, leashes on their kids. What kind of parents are they? But when you look at it from a parenting perspective, you're like, yes, they're still alive. How many are you glad Justice and Jackson are still alive? Thank you very much.